Have you ever given your all to someone, only to have it thrown back in your face? This is the story of Mark, a man who thought he had the perfect life, the perfect wife, and a future brighter than the sun. He was a successful architect, doting husband to his college sweetheart Sarah, and a man who believed in happily ever after. But sometimes, the stories we write for ourselves have the most unexpected and heartbreaking plot twists. Mark and Sarah's love story was the kind people write songs about. They met in a crowded university library, a chance encounter over a dropped stack of books that felt like destiny. He was captivated by her laugh. She was charmed by his quiet confidence. For 10 years, their life was a beautiful tapestry woven with shared dreams and inside jokes. Mark worked tirelessly, not for the money, but for the future he envisioned with Sarah. He wanted to give her the world, a beautiful home, security, everything she'd ever dreamed of. He thought their foundation was solid, built on trust and mutual adoration. He was wrong. The first crack in their perfect facade appeared not with a bang, but with a whisper. It started subtly. Sarah began working late more often. Her phone became a fortress he wasn't allowed to breach, and the warmth in her eyes was replaced by a distant, distracted coolness. When Mark asked about her day, her answers were vague, punctuated by tired sighs. "It's just work," she'd say. "You wouldn't understand." He tried to be supportive, bringing her dinner, running her baths, trying to ease the stress he thought was consuming her. He dismissed his own gnawing unease as paranoia. After all, this was Sarah, his Sarah. Cheating was something that happened in movies, to other people, not to them. But the whispers grew louder. A friend mentioned seeing Sarah's car parked outside a fancy downtown restaurant Mark knew she disliked. Then came an anonymous email, a single sentence that froze his blood. "Your wife isn't who you think she is." Paranoia gave way to a cold, sickening dread. He still wanted to believe, to trust the woman he had loved for a decade. But he couldn't ignore the signs any longer. The truth, he realized, was a door he had to open, no matter how terrifying the room on the other side might be. The confrontation was quieter than he expected. There was no screaming, no thrown plates. Just a heavy, suffocating silence after he laid out his suspicions. He showed her the email, mentioned the restaurant, and watched as the color drained from her face. The denial was weak, pathetic. And then, the truth spilled out. The late nights weren't for work projects. They were for dinners with a wealthy client, a man named Julian. The constant texting wasn't with her colleagues. It was with him. She confessed to the affair, not with remorse, but with a chilling justification. "He understands me, Mark," she said, her voice devoid of emotion. "He offers me a life you can't." Each word was a sledgehammer to the beautiful life Mark had built. She spoke of Julian's yacht, his penthouse apartment, his influence. It became painfully clear that she hadn't fallen out of love with Mark. She had fallen in love with a lifestyle he couldn't provide. His hard work, his devotion, his love. It was all weighed against material wealth and found wanting. She told him she was leaving, that she had already packed a bag. She was choosing Julian. In that moment, Mark didn't just lose his wife. He felt like he had lost everything. The future they had planned, the memories they had made, the very identity he had built as her husband. It all crumbled into dust. The days that followed were a blur of grief and disbelief. The house, once filled with laughter, now echoed with a crushing emptiness. Every corner held a memory, now tainted. He went through the motions of life, but his heart felt hollowed out. He had given her his everything, and she had traded it for something shiny and new, as if their entire marriage was a transaction she had simply upgraded. He felt like a failure, a fool. The divorce was swift and brutal. Sarah, guided by Julian's high-priced lawyers, took him for everything she could. A significant portion of his savings, half the value of the home he'd poured his soul into. She took it all without a backward glance. He was left with a mountain of debt, a broken heart, and a profound sense of worthlessness. He had lost it all, or so he thought. Sometimes, hitting rock bottom is the only way to find a new foundation. Months passed. Slowly, painfully, Mark began to pick up the pieces. He sold the house, a symbolic shedding of a past that was no longer his. He moved into a smaller apartment, a blank canvas. He poured his pain and anger not into despair, but into his work. His designs became bolder, more innovative, fueled by a newfound fire. He started reconnecting with old friends he had neglected, realizing he hadn't been alone, just isolated within his marriage. He started hiking, finding solace in the quiet strength of nature. He was rediscovering the man he was before he became Sarah's husband. One crisp autumn afternoon, about a year after the divorce, Mark was sketching in a park when he saw them. Sarah and Julian. He almost didn't recognize her. The vibrant, laughing woman he remembered was gone. In her place was someone who looked tired. Her designer clothes seemed to hang off her, and the smile she gave Julian didn't reach her eyes. They had a brief, stilted argument over something trivial. In that moment, watching from a distance, Mark didn't feel anger or jealousy. He felt nothing. A strange, liberating sense of pity, perhaps, but the deep, aching love was gone. He saw the truth with startling clarity. Sarah hadn't been looking for a better man. She had been looking for an easier life. She had traded authentic connection for luxury, and in the process, she had lost herself. The man she was with saw her as another one of his possessions, a beautiful accessory. Mark realized he hadn't lost everything. He had lost a burden. He had lost an illusion. The woman he loved had never truly existed. She was a character he had projected onto Sarah. The real Sarah was the woman he saw in the park, hollow and unfulfilled. That day was a turning point. Mark finally understood that his worth was never tied to Sarah's approval. It was in his talent, his resilience, his kindness, his ability to love deeply, even if that love was once misplaced. He hadn't lost everything. He had been given a second chance. He had been freed from a relationship that was holding him back, a love that was conditional. He realized that true wealth isn't measured in bank accounts or luxury goods, but in self-respect, genuine connections, and the peace that comes from being true to yourself. He had lost a wife, a house, and a lot of money. But in return, he had found himself, and that, he realized, was worth more than anything she could have ever taken from him. He was no longer the man who lost everything. He was the man who was finally free. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories about resilience and finding strength in the face of adversity. We'll see you in the next one.